What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a Sun, Moon and Stars theme team in the Retro Cup that I actually saw featured on its Axon's channel. Not his team of course, it was an opponent using the team, but it inspired me to run this team back because I think the last time I ran this trio together, they'd all just gained access to Sidewave, but the backline hadn't yet learned Weatherball, and of course Starmie didn't have access to Aquajet, so they should all now be much stronger. Now of course the entire team is very weak to Grass, Ghost and Dark type damage, but we're still able to overcome a bunch of hard counters. However, I was really struggling to overcome the terrible game state on this new code. It feels like every game there's a different issue, and it's getting to the point where, honestly, I don't really want to play this game anymore, but as a content creator, I kind of need to, so here we are. Also, just in case you missed it, I would highly recommend checking out yesterday's World Cup theme video, as there were tons of crazy battles with a really creative theme, and to be honest, I thought that was a guaranteed bang posting it on the day of the final, but that video is actually my worst performing video in a long time, certainly my worst this season, with barely 3k views, which is very disappointing, but it is on the old code, so it's probably a lot more enjoyable to watch without me complaining every other battle about the game not working. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. Are you actually still playing in the Go Battle League right now? I feel like interest is at an all-time low, so let me know in the comment section down below, are you still playing or are you just watching? But with that being said, let's finally get into the battles now. I should go into the first battle, leading Shadow Starmie into Kingdra. This is going to be a bit of an awkward matchup because, of course, Aquajet is going to be double resisted. I'm going to swap out. I tried to catch a Swift where it would be resisted. However, this is just going to be a Surf. Surf is going to hit for big damage there. Unfortunately for the opponent, it doesn't quite put me into farm down range. This is just a double resisted Weather Ball. However, the opponent is going to end up shielding. Now, honestly, from this range, Aquajet probably will get the knockout. So we're going to come back in with the Starmie, but my energy just doesn't come up. That is so frustrating, man. So I'm forced to use a shield there. I'm going to swap into Lunatone, and I am just barely able to farm them down there before they reach another Surf. They're going to come in with a Crustal. Not the best matchup for me because Fury Cutters are going to be super effective. However, we do have a pretty significant energy advantage, meaning I'm able to grab a shield there with the Rock Slide. I can now look to use my final shield as well as the opponent fires off the X-Scissor, and they swap out into their final Pokemon, which is going to be a Grumpig. Now, I do have to be wary as Crustal does have some residual energy, so I'm going to bank the Rock Slide, swap into my Shadow Starmie, and this should be a dynamic punch because, of course, they didn't need to full send a Shadow Ball from that range, which means here I go for the Aqua Jet, but then I realize I can't allow Crustal to farm me down, so we go for the undercharge, and it works out perfectly for me. If Crustal farms me down there, of course, they come out with a charge we've loaded, likely winning CMP up against the Lunatone, and so I get the perfect undercharge, get the full farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. Going to see a Rapidash in the lead. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into a Rangaroo, so I might as well just choose to stay in initially here. Of course, both Brutal Swing and the Trailblaze are going to hit for super effective, and as you can see, try to click on the charge move there before the opponent throw a charge move of their own, and unfortunately, it just doesn't register. I've had so many instances today where I'd go for the charge move, I'd click on it, and then, of course, it just doesn't register, and it is super frustrating. Feels like over-tapping with one-turn fast moves in particular. It's just getting out of hand right now on this new code. Again, you can see I'm clicking on that charge move, but it just doesn't register, and as a result, Body Slam gets the KO. I thought maybe I would just barely live that, but again, so much energy wasted there. I didn't really want to use my final shield, so now we're going to come back in with a Starmie, and I will go for the Aqua Jet. Now, Thunder, I presume, probably does do more damage, but honestly, not that much more damage considering it is a lot more energy. So at this point, I'm going to look to shield here. If they swap back into a Rangaroo, I will be swapping into my Lunatone, and I should be able to tank either a Trailblaze or a Brutal Swing fairly comfortably. They go for the Trailblaze there, of course, boosting up their attack stat. I'm now going to look to throw a Rock Weather Ball. Oh, sorry, not Rock Weather Ball. A Rock Slide, as I don't think Weather Ball would quite get the knockout from that range. We get the KO there. Let's see what they want to do. The opponent thinking about it. They're going to come back in with the Rapidash, but they're forced to throw straight away. And as a result, this game should be over here. Drill Run gets the KO. We can come in with the Shadow Starmie. Just have to make sure the opponent doesn't make a catch, which is pretty much impossible with an Incinerate user, which means Aquajet gets the KO. We can Sidewave, farm down the Miltank, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Jellicent in the leads. Of course, this is not a great matchup for me whatsoever, but I do have access to Thunder. However, the fact that I'm staying in is quite likely that the opponent will end up shielding here, so I will go for a bait with the Aqua Jet. And so, Aqua Jet should be grabbing a shield here. However, I think that might have been a CMP tie. No, it's not a CMP tie, but I didn't choose to throw straight away. Honestly, I thought I might live a Surf, but this is a Shadow Starmie we're talking about. So, of course, we do not live the damage there. We can come in with the Soul Rock, and I will actually throw on CMP. Winning CMP a little bit risky just because the opponent was quite likely to overfarm there, but no, they do throw straight away. Now the opponent going to go for a Surf, which doesn't get the KO, so I'm going to swap into my final Pokemon, which is a Lunatone, and the opponent's going to swap out into Licky Licky. Of course, not the best matchup for me either because they are going to have access to Shadow Ball. However, you can see with the Psywave damage, 2 Rock Slides will be enough to KO, especially if the opponent does full send a Shadow Ball. Now, I can massively overfarm, but I'm still 1 away from back-to-back Rock Sides. So we fire off the Rock Side gets the KO. I have to swap out here to look to try and catch a Surf from the Jellicent, and I'm able to do exactly that. That is huge for me. Surf gets the KO. The opponent not going to hang around. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Fart, and unfortunately for me, even though we do have the energy advantage, 2 Rock Sides would be enough damage, but a Rock Side and a Weather Ball will not be enough damage here, and unfortunately I had to settle for the Weather Ball as the opponent, well, they now have the energy for a Brick Break. They could have gone for Swift. Swift would have been resisted, but it gets the KO anyways there, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Licky Licky in the lead. So this is fine for me. I'm going to choose to stay in here because, of course, my Sidewaves and my Aqua Jets are going to add up over time. And we've already got them deep into the other health range. At this point, I'm definitely going to look to shield as the opponent, well, they might full send, and they do full send that Shadow Ball. We're now going to look to overfarm. I will fire off the Aqua Jet just before they reach Shadow Ball number 2. And Aqua Jet is going to grab a shield. I'm now going to look to overfarm here. And unfortunately, not quite able to go for a full fast move farm down. I'm going to bank the energy now, swap out into my Lunatone to get a slight energy advantage, and let's see what they want to do. They're going to come in with a Jellicent, so of course, not ideal for me, but we do have a slight energy advantage, which means I can fire off the Rock Side. I'm also not throwing on CMP either, and the opponent gonna overfarm, allowing me to reach a Weather Ball, which of course is resisted damage, but the opponent is going to end up shielding. Now at this point, of course, any charge move should get the knockout, but hopefully Starmie can still have the energy here, and click on the charge move straight away. We're able to win CMP, and of course, Aqua Jet resisted, but it gets the KO from that range. Their final Pokemon gonna be their own Psywave user in the form of Lapras, but I should be looking fine here. I should be able to live a Sparkling Aria, and the opponent isn't gonna be able to Psywave farm me down, so I'm able to reach a Rock Side. However, if they were able to reach another charge move there, we've got Thunder on the Starmie. It was gonna be game over anyways. The opponent actually lives the Rock Side just narrowly, but it doesn't matter. One more Psywave, farms down the Lapras, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I see a Lampent in the lead, and they're on Astonished, so dealing huge damage here with the fast move pressure. I'm going to stay in, fire off the Aqua Jet, and then I will swap out of this matchup. I'm going to swap out into my Soul Rock just because I feel like the Ice Weather Ball is a little bit more useful for the end game, although actually, obviously, there are typically a lot of dragons in the Retro Cup. I barely saw any Dragon-type Pokemon at all today, which is quite interesting. A lot of Psychic-type Pokemon and Psychic-type counters, which does make a lot of sense because Oranguru, very common, Fire, very common as well. But either way, we are going to fire off back-to-back charge boosts there. The opponent going to farm up. They actually go for a foul play, so that means they're going to need 3 more confusions to reach the next charge move. So I'm going to swap out, catch the move onto my Shadow Starmie, and I should now be able to go for a full farm down. The opponent likely going to swap out of this matchup, and they do swap out at the last second there. It doesn't really help them too much though, as now we can go for the Rock Side. Rock Side not going to be shielded, and it gets the KO, and let's see what their final Pokemon is. So the opponent is going to come in with a Dragon-type Pokemon. So just as I'm mentioning that I didn't really see too many of them, here is one of them. And it actually is probably one of the best Dragon-types we can see with this team. Because, of course, we are a triple Psywave team. The Ice Weather Ball there is going to put them into range where I can shield once, fully fast we farm them down. I can farm down Oranguru as well. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We see Oranguru in the lead this time around, so I will outpace the opponent here, and it does look like we lag by 1 turn at the start of the battle, so I'm actually going to fire off the Aqua Jet as soon as I get there. I should typically be able to overfarm by a single Psy Wave and still throw it on good timing, but because we were 1 turn behind, I had to throw immediately. Now, the opponent's going to come in with a Furret. Now, the issue with this team that I'm running is that once they see me swap into, like, the Soul Rock, for example, they can probably guess the third Pokemon, so the opponent probably clocking on, realizing that, yes, this is going to be a triple Psy-Wave team, and their Furret being very healthy is going to be quite problematic for me. So we're going to shield here. They're on break, so I guess that is maybe a slight positive, because Trailblaze would be slightly worse for me, because now at least I can swap out and clear this debuff. We go for Rock Slide. The opponent is going to double shield that Furret, so I'm now going to look to shield as well, as the opponent goes for another break. We are now going to see the opponent's going to swap out into a Shadow Kingdra, which is not ideal for me, but I do have access to Thunder. Thunder, neutral damage, it gets the KO there, but now the opponent can just come back in with Oranguru, and I believe they're 1 away from the next charge move. No, never mind, they overfarm here. So that is actually going to allow me to reach the Weather Ball. Weather Ball gets the KO. Can I outpace the Furret to the next move? Unfortunately not, as they did bank some energy before swapping out, and as a result, Brick Break takes out the Lunatone, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Quillfish in the lead, so this is a great lead matchup for me. The opponent, of course, likely going to be on Shadow Ball, which it did gain access to this season, and Shadow Ball would very comfortably take me out there, so I'm going to use a shield, as the opponent now swaps out into Shadow Shelgot. Now, ideally, I'd actually run Ice Beam on the Starmie, full coverage up against Dragon-type Pokemon, but like I said, I didn't see too many of them. I think only Shelgon and Hakamoto, but either way, we're going to come in with a Lunatone, and we actually don't tank that Twister very comfortably, and as a result, I'm not going to reach back-to-back Weather Balls here before the opponent can fully fast move farm me down, so that is not ideal for me in the slightest. But the opponent overfarms here, allowing Shadow Starmie to get to the Aqua Jet, win CMP, and get the KO with a resisted charge move. The opponent's final Pokemon gonna be a Licky. I'm gonna swap out. I'm able to catch a resisted Body Slam here, and Body Slam not gonna do too much damage there, so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We can see Shadow Crustle in the lead, so that is not a great matchup for me. Of course, I should be able to win CMP in this matchup if the opponent chooses to stay in and throw straight away, but they're just going to save the energy. It makes a lot of sense, because they could probably just shield once and then fully Fury Cut to farm me down. So now we swap into our Soul Rock, and we're now met with a Furret. So, of course, not ideal for me so far. Their entire team has super effective fast move pressure into my team, but we are going to no shield, hoping they're not on Trailblaze here, but the opponent is on Trailblaze. Trailblaze gets the KO. That is quite devastating for me, because I feel like if that was just a Brick Break, I could probably reach a Fire Weather Ball and force a shield, whereas now I'm forced to swap, catch the charge move onto my Shadow Starmie. Of course, Swift gonna get the KO from that range. I probably would have been able to farm them down, but they swap back into the Crustle, and yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think there's anything I can beat in the back line here. I can get to back-to-back Weather Balls. I don't even know if I could take out the Furret, in all honesty, but Weather Ball gets the KO there, and let's see, what is their final Pokemon? It is their own Lunatone, which I'm not going to be able to beat, and so unfortunately I'm going to have to concede the match there. But GG's up on there into the next battle. I'm going to see Medicham in the lead. We completely wall this Pokemon, so the opponent swaps out into Mantine, but we've got Thunder. Thunder, not respected. That is double super effective. Easily gets the one-shot. They're now going to come in with a Shadow Girafarig, and so I'm going to stay in, go straight for the Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet is going to be shielded, and now I swap out into my Soul Rock. Of course, I'm expecting a Trailblaze here, so I'll definitely shield the first charge move, and it is going to be that Trailblaze. I'm now going to reach a Fire Weather Ball. Weather Ball probably gets the KO from this range, so it is going to force the final shield, and the opponent will throw just before I get to the next charge move. Trailblaze gonna get the clean KO there very comfortably. We can now come in with our Lunatone, and what I do expect is for the opponent to swap back into the Medicham. However, I should be able to live a Dynamic Punch, so I'm just gonna bank the energy, save a Weather Ball for that Girafarig, and now come in with my Shadow Starmie. Now, as I mentioned, I do wall the energy. However, we are very low. I'm forced to shield there. However, what I'm gonna do is put myself into range where they call Confusion farm me down. Girafarig should be able to reach a Psychic Fangs here before I get to the Aqua Jet. However, we have the move banked on the Lunatone, so that's going to be game over. Psychic Fangs gets the KO, but I can go straight for the Weather Ball, and of course, Weather Ball will get the KO up against that Shadow Girafarig, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, I'm going to see Credilli in the lead. So, this is going to be a neutral-ish matchup here, of course. I'm expecting the opponent will probably just bait with their Rock Tomb instead of going for the Grass Knot. However, I am just going to shield anyways. And so, we're going to shield here. I'm then going to swap into my Soul Rock. As, like I mentioned, I feel like the Fire Weatherball coverage isn't really that helpful for me. And here, again, I'm clicking on that Weatherball, but it just doesn't register. Super, super frustrating. Forces my final shield already. And then here, we click on the charge move on bad timing, but I try to just carry on tapping like I've done for all the other times where the charge move hasn't registered, and this time around, of course, because it's bad timing, it absolutely registers. So super annoying. Honestly, I can't even talk right now. I'm really struggling, but yeah, like the one time we click on the move at bad timing, the game decides, actually, yeah, we will probably just register this charge move, whereas every time I try to throw it on perfect timing, the game's like, nah, maybe we'll just go for more fast moves. So at this point, I think it's game over. We lost this game as soon as we threw on bad timing there. Unfortunate, but Shadowbone easily takes us out there, and we lose that game. But into the next battle, GG's to that trainer, by the way. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Crustal, and so we respond with our Soul Rock. Now, of course, I'm going to look to shield here as X-Scissor would hit for super effective damage. It would deal big damage. I'm now going to go and full send a Rock Slide here, as Rock Slide guarantees the KO, whereas a Fire Weather Ball, unfortunately, won't quite cut it from this range. At this point, I probably can't afford to shield here because I feel like they probably Fury Cut to find me down. So instead, we're going to no shield. I'm going to come in with the Lunar Tone, and I'm going to look to shield once and then commit to a sideway farm down. The opponent goes for X's. I'm actually going to swap into my Starmie, but the opponent swaps out at the same time, coming in with a Charger Bug, and that is certainly not ideal for me, as we go for the Arc Jet, but that does big damage, and that's going to force the opponent to throw some energy. They are very low here. At this point, X-Scissor gets the KO. We come in with the Lunar Tone, and unfortunately, they survive with 1 HP in a Dream. I should have clicked on the charge move, but Psywave is kind of a pretty obnoxious fast move. It gets in the way. I couldn't actually see how much health they had there, so it was a bit annoying, but that's kind of on the animations there, rather than the game just not behaving correctly. Either way, into next battle, we're going to see Araquanid, so I'm going to swap into Lunar Tone. Luckily for me, the opponent actually no-shields that first move, and they're committing to a full farm down, which means we get to Weather Ball, and we grab a shield advantage. That's pretty nice for me, because Bug Bite is going to shred through my entire team, whereas now I've put them into range where I can safely shield once, and if they don't Bubble Beam me, I should be able to Sidewave farm them all the way down. So we get the full farm down, but they're going to come in with a Charge Bug. So once again, not ideal, but we've just seen Arc Jet does a lot of damage. So now I'm going to swap out into my Soul Rock. Now, they can fire off a charge move here. Of course, X's are going to hit for super effective damage. But unfortunately for me, the opponent's going to have a Cresselia in the back, where likely they are on Grass Knot. Here, by the way, I thought they only threw 5 Psycho Cuts there, but I guess they threw 6. And now we're going to go for a Rock Slide. Rock Slide, unfortunately, not going to two-shot them, but it will get them relatively low here. Now, I do expect you grab a shield from the opponent, and Starmie, unfortunately, I'm going to have to just come in with the Starmie, but no, they actually no shield. Wait a second here. We reach a Weather Ball before they throw. Weather Ball gonna be no shielded again. What is this trainer doing? We swap into Starmie, we lose a ton of health, and then we regain it and then lose it again. Honestly, the visuals are all over the place in this battle, but we can Sidewave, farm down the Charge Bug. I don't understand why they didn't shield the Cresselia there. Surely they realized they were in farm down range, but either way, GG's to that opponent. Now into the next battle, we're gonna see Oranguru in the lead once again, and here, this time we don't start a turn behind, so I can throw on good timing, fire off the Arc Jet, and then swap out into my Soul Rock, where of course, I'm still going to be hit for super effective damage. However, I will be able to tank a charge move, but the opponent actually just continuing to overfarm. They then swap into a Clodsire, and unfortunately, this is where I wish I was running the Lunar Tone, because we'd have access to Ice Weather Ball, and Ice Weather Ball would very comfortably two-shot them. Whereas unfortunately, we go for back-to-back Fire Weather Balls, but it's not super effective damage, and even then, it doesn't quite put them into Sideway farm down range. So here, I'm going to try and snipe them with the damage from the Shadow Starmie, but I'm not quite able to get there in time, which means I'm going to have to double shield. I am watching out for a potential snipe attempt from the Oranguru, but now they eventually come in with the Oranguru. They've got so much energy here. We fire off the Arc Jet, and of course, they should be looking to boost up their attack stat with the Trailblaze, and they're going to do exactly that. Now, of course, Trailblaze is going to hit the rest of my team for super effective damage, and they're already boosted, so that's not ideal. But we're going to come in with the Soul Rock, as the opponent is going to fire off a second Trailblaze. That doesn't quite get the KO, however, so we come in with the Lunatone. I can't quite fully farm them down, so we fire off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball gets the KO. Their final Pokemon is an Annihilate. Now, this is going to be very close here. Of course, they're going to have access to Rage Fist. Rage Fist going to hit for super effective damage, and it's also going to boost up their attack stat. Now, they throw as late as possible here, which is quite interesting because they get me incredibly low where we still survive one more low kick. If they threw slightly earlier there, I think, honestly, one more damage is all they needed to fast move farm me down there. And, of course, they would have boosted up their fast move pressure, so they probably would have got the win. But either way, GG's to our trainer into the next battle. We're going to see a great lead matchup for me. And then the opponent swaps out into Hakamoa, where, of course, that's just a Brick Break. That's resisted damage. We can come in with the Soul Rock. I'm not going to bother throwing a charge move. We are going to have to tank another Brick Break here, but we can tank that pretty comfortably and then commit to the farm down. The opponent comes back in with the Macargo, where, of course, Rock Slide is going to hit for super effective damage. But of course, they are going to take less damage from a Rock Slide compared to the Aqua Jet, where it's double super effective. But either way, the opponent is going to look to double shield their Macargo and then throw a charge move. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't commit to a full farm down because I'd reached yet another Rock Weather Ball there. So I keep on calling it Rock Weather Ball. I know it's Rock Slide, but either way, we're going to see a Jumpluff as the final Pokemon. We can actually tank an Energy Ball. However, that does hit for super effective damage, and it also drops my defense there. But either way, I think I'm going to try and 2-shield flex in this battle. So at this point, I'm going to look to no-shield this. I should be able to sideway farm down the Jumpluff from this range. And the opponent, if they swap back into my Cargo, well, of course, I'm going straight for the Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet, double super effective, comfortably gets the KO there. We can sideway farm them down, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.